Hello, welcome to the Free Bin, the Toledo, Oregon Public Library's podcast. I'm Harrison.
And I'm Cindy.
And we have a guest today.
We do, which we'll introduce in a minute.
Before we go into our episode, we should talk about what we've got coming up, because as usual, we've got a lot on the horizon. Cindy's got the news.
We do. We have a ton coming up for the library. In November, we have our decoration day for the umbrella parade, which is kind of become a tradition in Toledo. And so on Saturday, November 16th, you can come on down anytime from 1 to 4, decorate an umbrella that you can carry in the parade. The parade, however, is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And your umbrellas and yourselves and all your kids and anybody else can come on down to, do they meet at the library and then go to Main Street?
We meet at the top of Main Street.
Okay, so they meet at the top of Main Street, have your umbrella, and then you're going to parade down Main Street all the way down to the tree lighting at that corner by the pizza place.
Yeah, right in front of Cobblestone.
Yep. And there'll be a tree lighting, there'll be judging, there'll be all kinds of stuff for your enjoyment. There will also be, at the Toledo Elks Lodge, there'll be a party. Santa will be there, and the Sweet Adelines will be singing, so it sounds like it's going to be really fun.
That's always a fun time.
And there is going to be a raffle for a lighted umbrella, which Denise will have at the library, so you'll have to come on in and enter the raffle. We also have something new starting for our adults. We have a cookbook club, and the cookbook club is a fun activity that meets once a month, but you come into the library, you pick a recipe out of a cookbook that we chose, and this month's is a literary holiday cookbook. You pick your recipe, we make you a copy, you take it home, and then on December 7th at 4 o'clock at the library, you bring your dish back that you made from the book, and we all share the food. And we can talk critically about the recipes, or we can just visit and eat food, which might be really fun.
And I love the idea of literary cookbooks, because a lot of books make you hungry.
Yeah, that's right.
Every time I read my son Pizza Pat at bedtime, we finish that and we look at each other and it's like, I kind of want pizza now. Yeah. So this recipe book is really unique. It pulls in a lot of kind of classic books like Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Redwall, Little Women. If you're familiar with any of those, there's a lot of food involved. And you can choose a recipe from that. So let's see. Oh, and also in December, Holiday Kids Art Day, Saturday, December 14th from 12 to 3. It's sponsored by the Oregon Coast Children's Theater. Come in and do some cards. I think they're doing cards and ornaments. That should be a ton of fun. You can just drop in between those hours. And then celebrate the season on Saturday, December 21st from 1 to 2:30. We have a special performance by the Seaside Literary Ukulele Group. The Slugs are coming to play some Christmas tunes in the library. When they finish, we will have a Christmas story time where Harrison and Denise and I will be reading Christmas stories. And then there'll be a visit from the man himself, Santa. Santa's coming, Harrison. Are you excited? Santa!
I know. So Santa's coming.
I'm excited.
It'll be fun. And the kids will get a special thing to take home because Denise comes up with all kinds of things for kids. So
yes.
It's going to be a fun day. But we have a guest today because...
That's me.
We are super excited because we do have a new event that I know we haven't done this specifically here.
No, not this specifically, no. Yeah.
And so it's hopefully...
And if they've done it here at the library, it's been a very long time.
Yes.
For me, if it was.
So it is called Holla D&D. So to kick off what we are hoping to be a regular monthly club for you Dungeons and Dragons players, we want to start here at the library. We want to tie it into summer reading program for next year, because what's the theme for summer reading program?
Level up at your library.
Oh, I love that.
It's very much gamer oriented, so that's exciting. We have lots of new things coming out that you'll be able to access soon that has to do with gaming. However, we brought in the legendary, the one, the only, Thomas Rogers, who is a professional level D&D dungeon master.
Yeah, dungeon master.
And he is putting together two, and now I hope I got this right, 2 one-shot holiday-themed
Dungeons and Dragons.
Campaigns.
Yeah, they're
campaigns.
one-shot campaigns. There'll be 2 different sessions that people can sign up for and join.
Yes.
And they're holiday-themed every year. It's actually become a annual tradition for me to do this with the group of guys that I work with, and I work with several different groups. And I've gotten to the point where I needed to schedule it and make it more official and things like that.
Right.
And so partnering with the library and doing it here at the library is going to be really fun.
Yeah.
I've done these holiday sessions for... at this point, I don't know how long I've been doing the holiday sessions.
So there'll be 2 sessions, one on December 13th, one on December 14th. That's a Friday and a Saturday. They start at 4. They go about 6 hours, so it's a whole evening. There'll be snacks provided. There'll be more information, and the most important thing is there will be a sign-up sheet. The sessions cap out at 6 players.
Yeah. And anyone who's played D&D knows that even 6 is a large group.
Is a stretch. So we want to keep this to high school age and up, keeping in mind that we are working towards having some maybe tween games and that kind of thing starting in January. So this is just for this event. We're saying high school age and up. Don't forget, you need to sign up. You can call the library to sign up, or you can come in and let us know you're interested, and we'll sign you up. So the sign-up sheets and the flyers and posters, those will all be out in the next week or so. All right. So we brought Thomas in because we really needed to learn a little more about what he does, how he does it. I am
specifically about the D&D stuff.
Yeah, right? The D&D stuff. And I am a mother of boys that play, but I've never played a game in my life. Yeah. I've watched it. I've seen it.
You've laughed from the other room listening to us.
I've laughed hysterically from the other room because sometimes you guys are just so weird. But that's okay. It's all about that sometimes. But I knew about this from when it came out because I was a young parent in the 80s. We're going to talk a little bit about that controversy that happened in the 80s regarding D&D. But so if you're listening, you might be going, okay, we've heard about this. Maybe I know a little bit about it. Maybe I don't know anything about it, but we have the answer man. Okay. And so I would like just...
I'm not the go-to guy,
Right, but you're the local.
It's not like I play on Critical Role or anything.
Right. So. You're local though. Yeah. So, and that is one of my questions because I don't know what Critical Role is. You're going to have to explain that, but let me ask this first. We'll get into that. What is Dungeons and Dragons, and how did you get started? How did you get started playing?
Okay. Well, Dungeons and Dragons is simply a tabletop role-playing game. That's a phrase you'll hear used to describe it. It's a TTRPG. Okay. It just means a tabletop role-playing game where you play it on a table, but you're playing a role. It's a role-playing game, and so you're playing through a story as a person, and so that's your character. That's what you latch on to, and there's lots of different ones, but Dungeons and Dragons is kind of the grandfather of them all, and it's a fantasy-based one. Its origins come from Lord of the Rings. A lot of the character classes and races and stuff came right out of the Lord of the Rings books, and so that works out perfectly, like with a lot of people who know anything about fantasy. And then you take these classes right out of those books. It's right out of a book that it all came from. So that's Dungeons and Dragons. Fantasy, classic high fantasy characters playing it and playing through a story collectively. I got started in D&D actually because I grew up, I was born in the 80s, I was a kid then. So I grew up thinking Dungeons and Dragons was a bad thing. I actually did. And I don't even remember anyone ever telling me it was a bad thing, but I grew up thinking it was. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to college, some of the guys in my dorm in the hall were playing it. And I was like, wait a second, I thought this was a bad thing. I thought we weren't supposed to do it. And so then I looked into it and started doing research on my own to see why I thought that way. 'Cause like I said, I don't remember anyone ever telling me it was bad. I just remember thinking it was. And I realized, no, it's just a game. It got some stuff associated with it, but really the game, it's just a game. That's actually really fun, and it's a great bonding experience for guys. So that's why I first kind of changed my mind on D&D, but I actually never found a group to play with. Those guys were like knee deep at least, if not chest deep in the game already. And I said, hey, can I join? They said, sure, and threw a character sheet at me. And that meant nothing to me. Like I could not just jump in. But later, actually, your son was the one who taught me how to play, Cindy. Your son did. He taught me how to play because your other son, your youngest son, wanted to start a group with his high school buddies.
I told you, we are like, I'm knee deep in it, but I don't know much.
So he wanted to start a group with his buddies, and he wanted somebody to come along that kind of knew it. And his older brother, the one who taught me how to play, didn't live in the area, but I did. So he asked me to kind of come and help get things going and running, because I was an adult that lived nearby, and he knew I was a big nerd.
Yeah.
So we kind of learned together there at the beginning, and I kept a group going. I've had at least one steady weekly group, usually 2 weekly groups going for about 15 years now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's how it started. Just your son asked me to help while he started a high school group with his buddies.
Yeah, and I remember you guys played at the house, and then you moved to your house to play, and there was a lot of snickering from my point of view because it was just seemed so weird. I'm not comfortable with that kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
But I tell us, how does that play into it? How does storytelling and narrative and character all play into D&D? Because you mentioned character sheets. Yeah. People might not know exactly what that is.
So the key thing in all of D&D is storytelling. The Dungeon Master has the rules for the world, and they're the ones who keep the rules going. It's like all the laws we have in nature, like the law of gravity, things like that. Those are the things the DM does in the world. And they might have an overarching story that they're trying to accomplish and do with the players, but each individual is a character in the story. So anytime you read a book, the characters in the book, they determine, their actions determine where the story goes. The difference is each person at the table's playing one of those characters. So you as the DM, you don't have control of the whole story. You only have control of aspects of the story.
Okay.
And so you're collectively telling a story at the table.
Okay.
You and the people you're playing with. So individuals are playing as a character. They have rules for their character because there's established laws to the universe, the D&D universe that you're in. And so that's what your sheet does. So you're playing within bounds, so you have limitations to yourself to play through this story. And that's really at its core, that's what it is. You're just group storytelling.
Okay, so basically it works, everybody takes turns.
Yep.
So there's like something, and this is, okay, I watch Big Bang Theory. This is my knowledge of how the game's played.
It is a little different than Big Bang Theory. And Big Bang Theory takes things and exaggerates them for people who know a little bit about it, but not a lot. Yeah.
So I have a character. I'm playing a game with 4 other people and a DM.
Yes.
Okay, so my character has certain skills.
Yep, certain skills,
certain levels, traits.
Yeah, leveling. Some groups play real combat oriented, where it's about fighting with your characters. Some people play it's about like social. You're interacting with people.
Okay.
Some do a mix.
Okay.
And that really is key also for what kind of character you want to build.
Right.
Is what your group's going to do. Is it going to be? We're going to be at a lot of talking. You can have social intrigue. Any novels that you find like murder mysteries, you can do a murder mystery D&D.
I bet you could.
Yeah, they're
that
really
I would probably play.
Yeah, and they're actually really fun to play like murder mystery ones. I've played as them. Actually, one D&D group I played with, we did Tavern Simulator, where it wasn't supposed to be like that. That's it's one of those things where it's the DM might have a plan, but the characters can run with it, and they're the people really telling the story. And that was one of those situations where we were supposed to be like coming and saving this town from some curse or whatever, but the DM let one of the players purchase a tavern from somebody for dirt cheap because he was trying to show how desperate everyone wants to get out. And then we all fixed up the tavern and decided to revitalize the town through building this tavern, and we all jumped on board. And so I mean, like you can do all sorts of different stories.
So it's kind of like if you're familiar with them. I don't know if the library has any, but like choose your own adventure. Yeah. So basically, what my actions in the game create actions and reactions from other
especially
players.
from the DM.
Okay,
who's the one running the world and all of the NPCs, the non-player characters. Because in a story, you've got your main characters, but you've also got your side characters, and the DM is all of those characters.
Okay, so really, the game is never the same twice.
I've even played the same story because there's published materials that are pre-written,
and we have some of those in the library.
I've played those multiple times and never even close to each other. Like so vastly different. I also wanted to show you, like with D&D, here's some dice.
We got a D20.
That's a D20. Yeah, see that's the die you roll all the time for everything. Those are metal ones.
This is heavy.
Yeah,
what's this made out of?
It's I don't know exactly, but it is a metal one. It's my go-to DMing dice.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, I know. That's why I have it. And
I rolled a 5.
You rolled a 5. Ooh, that's
I think I failed the skill check for hosting a podcast.
Let me see what I rolled.
Ooh,
I got
worse.
a 4.
Let's see if I can do any better, guys.
A 20.
That's perfect.
Okay, you're in charge.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm the DM, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so I have this custom roll box that's wood too, so because these will hurt your table if you roll on the table too much.
Right.
But I roll in the roll box that's got felt line and stuff. But I love the sound of these.
Yeah.
You know, like you were.
That's
like
a
you were
serious game. That's a serious game.
So, do you find that you gravitate more toward the narrative aspects or more toward the crunchy, the math and the stats and the rolls and that sort of thing?
Personally, I like the narrative stuff. I've played with players that like both. Really, you're going to find people who are power gamers who are all just like, I'm going to conquer the next big thing. You find some guys who they're munchkin-y. That means that they're just crunching all the numbers. They're making the most powerful thing they can to manipulate things. There's guys who use it as like an escape narrative, so they're just really getting into the mindset of their character and they're believing that. There's some who they just want to tell a fun story. For me, it's the story. That's what matters. So if that means, you're playing your character and you're totally goofy or weird, or you're complimentary to the teammates, it's the narrative. It's how it all flows together and how this story that you're creating goes. That's how it is for me. I know that there's different kinds of gamers, so I'm going to bring other ones in. I'm going to, have those big combat moments. I'm going to have that big epic takedown of the boss, because to me that also flows as a good story. But that you're going to bring things in to lend to those players who really that's what they want to do. And so D&D is meant to be a collective experience, everyone working together. And so you got to bring in there whatever isn't the most important to that player. So,
well, so we talked just slightly about the moral dilemma. What did you call it? The something panic.
Oh, the Satanic Panic in the 80s.
That's what it was called.
It was, a pretty large scale moral panic in the United States, especially, that found as its targets role-playing games, certain kinds of music.
Especially Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. And I read a little bit about it, the association that happened with the occult. And this is what I grew up with. Okay, so this is what I knew as a parent who had children that were kind of, into it. I remember having conversations about, well, is this okay to do? And it all goes back to knowing how the game's played. And as a parent, my husband and I would be like, okay, so tell us about the game. Tell us what's going on. And because I don't have a problem playing role-playing games. They're not my favorite. I mean, but I think I was worried about my kids because it becomes so obsessive. You can be really obsessive about it. As I
mentioned, the escapism aspect for some guys is real, and that can create a problem. Like if you're using it so much that you don't want to associate with your reality anymore.
Right.
It can be a problem.
And that's kind of what happened, I think, and it was proved. There's a couple books out about it. I did some research, and so there was a saga. This is just reading. A notable saga was James Dallas Egbert III and the facts They were fictionalized in a novel, Mazes and Monsters, and later made into the movie.
Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks' second role in a movie.
Crazy misrepresentation of the situation.
Yes. And then they went, a private investigator was hired by the family because he disappeared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He disappeared off the, they didn't know where he was. And this private detective went and found him eventually and wrote a book about it, just refuting any connection with D&D and his personal issues. But the damage kind of was done.
Yeah, yeah.
And it became kind of associated with geeky, nerdy outcasts,
a lot of that
social
stuff.
outcasts. And I saw a quote, and I don't know if I put it down because it was such a funny quote about how, let's see, the research. Okay, here it is. It's from Martin Starr, who is a Silicon Valley guy.
Yeah.
And he says there's a huge resurgence of nerd culture, especially with the tech boom.
Yeah.
If nerds were still poor and living at their mothers, nobody would be paying any attention to Dungeons and Dragons. But nerds rule the world, and D&D is making a big comeback.
Yeah, and there's a lot of actually really big, popular Hollywood men
I have a list.
that are involved in D&D, including like some good-looking dudes. So
Right.
it kind of changed the image.
I know which one that is, but
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
say his name. There's a
that
whole...
it's really changed the image of D&D. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got his name written
So
right there, the one I was just talking about.
There's
Yeah.
Joe Manganiello, who we all know from, well, I don't know him from that.
I was going to
Magic
say,
Mike.
I didn't know
I
you'd
don't
seen
know
that
him from
movie,
that.
so-
He was in
He was in
True Blood, right?
Yeah.
He was in
yeah.
lots of
Werewolf,
stuff.
yeah.
Vin Diesel, who, if you don't know, you've
very
probably been
huge
living under
deal,
a rock. And then, but I also noticed as I was doing a little bit of reading online, there are a lot of authors who credit Dungeons and Dragons
As
and
their
role-playing
inspiration,
games
yeah.
to help them develop narrative and character and
Well, that's what I'm
learn
saying.
how to
It's so
do
much
that.
storytelling, and there's so
Right.
much interactive storytelling that aspiring authors playing D&D is a great thing. You're going to lose my dice. You're
Sorry about
dropping them
that. Knocked it off.
all. But aspiring authors, the idea of like doing a narrative gameplay where people are going to think and act in a different way, which is great for an author because you're doing multiple characters.
Right.
We all think one way. We might be able to see another perspective, but we still only personally think one way. And so to be able to have that story influence from somebody else, because they're actually controlling the actions of that character and they're directing that character's thoughts, it's just great for aspiring authors.
One thing I've found, because I grew up adjacent to D&D. I didn't go to school till I was 14. So my friends who played D&D had their characters from elementary and middle school. They had their campaigns. So I didn't feel like I had a good on-ramp, but, I was a nerd and a metalhead. And so that was the milieu that I was in, but I have not sat down at a table and done a campaign.
Oh, you need to play with us.
I need to play.
I'll totally run a game for you, Harrison. It'd be fun to have you in a game.
But
I know that.
one thing that I do when I'm playing like a video game, like an open world game, Skyrim or something, is, it can be fun to do a run where you're kind of following your moral compass, right? You're playing like a hero character. And then sometimes you can have another save file going where it's like, what if I played a bad guy? What if I make the bad guy decisions? And I find it's hard, even knowing you're pretending and you're kind of just seeing how the game world works, how the outcomes change. Like, I feel guilty if I say no, if an NPC says, will you please help me? And I don't, even though I know
I was planning to just murder all the peasants, but I can't do it. I just can't bring myself to it.
It's interesting encountering your own thought processes by examining them from outside. It's like, this is all pretend, and I feel guilty, stealing from this guy who's not real.
Yeah, I know. And who's not real. I know 100% he's just like a code. It's those people who are completionists and they go to play their evil playthrough of the game on something. I think of Mass Effect, which does the same kind of thing. There's the Renegade meter. And I'm just like, I just feel like such a jerk. Like, I can't do it.
Well, that's kind of good though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you
It
felt
can
good
be
about being
reaffirming for who you are
like,
to play different characters for sure.
But it's interesting you mentioned that, like trying to play the different playthroughs. I have one guy, I'm running 2 weekly groups right now, actually, and he's in both of the groups. And in one of them, he plays this like thieving rogue, total gray moral compass guy that like the other guys are always trying to make sure he's not doing something he shouldn't be. And in the other game, he's like this beacon of heroism light character. And it like, there's at least one other guy that's in both games with him. That it just keeps confusing me what you're doing. Like, I don't like, that's not what you should be doing. It should be, I should be worried about you rather than like following your lead on this. Yeah. So it's actually pretty, that's kind of a fun thing you can do with D&D as well, is explore some of those other avenues. It does end up bringing you closer back usually to what you would normally play. Moral wise, there is a system for that. There's lawful good, and it's called an alignment system. Like lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good. There's a bunch of them. You usually end up coming close to on that alignment to what you are in real life. And most people in real life are usually fall around neutral good. And so it's just when you play, you end up kind of drifting back to it, even if you're a little bit like more erratic or chaotic or whatever. But it's just hard because in D&D it is an immersive kind of game.
So there are certain characters you can be, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So do you know those off the top of your head?
There's a lot.
Well, I know I was looking at, what are the main ones? What do people
like the
tend
classes?
to pick?
Okay, so
Yeah,
there's
the
classes and there's races. In D&D, the races are like, orc, elf, dwarf, those kinds of things. There's so many of them.
Right.
Like I could take up our time just listing those
Right.
up.
Kentucky
Classes,
Derby, Indy 500.
But classes, there's a lot less of those.
Right.
And classes are a lot of the things that people think of when they think of it. Wizards. If I'm going to get them all in there, I should go in the right order that I think of. But barbarian, bard, cleric, druid, sorcerer, warlock, wizard, artificer, ranger, rogue.
Okay.
I think I got all the bases in there.
So
I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm not Matt Mercer. I'm not going to be perfect every time, guys.
So to develop a character, you choose what you want to be.
Yeah. So
what
you
class
choose
you want to be in.
Yep. What class you're going to be, what race you're going to be.
Okay.
And then as you level, you get more choices to more specify your character.
So what do you have to do to level?
Speaking
of leveling up.
Yeah, to level up, there's different things you can do. Like I was saying, there's different campaigns that are social-based or mystery-based or combat-based or quest-based. You do those things.
Okay.
You just do stuff in the world. You complete doing things, and that gets you experience. Now, there's the most common way that I know of anyone who DMs currently is something called milestone experience, which once you get to a certain point in the game, once you achieve something specific,
right,
you gain a level.
Oh, okay.
But the classic way is just experience points.
So the higher your level, the more experience, the more power you have.
Yes.
Okay.
The more abilities you have,
Okay.
the more specific you can get with your character. Like a level 1 fighter is going to look pretty, well, fighter's a bad example. A level 1 barbarian is going to look like the next level 1 barbarian pretty much. They're going to be so similar. But a level 10 barbarian is going to look very different than another level 10 barbarian.
Okay. All right. So how many levels are there?
20 in 5th edition D&D, which is what we run.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah. There's also a lot of different editions of D&D, which is another discussion entirely. But I started with 4th edition, but I've also done 2nd edition and 3.5 and 5th edition, as well as I play tested for 5th edition.
Okay.
And then they just came out with the 2024 rules for 5th edition, even though it's technically still 5th edition.
Okay. One thing I haven't asked, because I mentioned at the beginning when I was talking about this, that you have, there's levels of DMs.
Yeah. There's
and
different
so tell
tiers,
me what makes you, I mean, this sounds awful, a good DM.
Well, no, it's a legitimate question.
Like a master dungeon master.
Anyone interested in playing, you want to know the qualifications of your DM. Because the DM, like I said, controls the world. So it makes a difference for everyone's gameplay, the DM and what their level of experience is. Like I mentioned, I've been doing it for 15 years.
Right.
At least a weekly group. I have over 5,000 hours of DMing hours. That's just DMing. Wow. I did the math just the other day because I'd never done the math before. But yeah, it's over 5,000 hours.
And you managed to get married and have 5 kids.
Yes, yeah.
And a job.
Yes, and run a full-time successful job. And if you've ever come to any of the puppet stuff at the library, that's usually me.
That's usually Thomas.
Yeah. But it's a lot of time invested in it. That alone is a positive thing.
Right.
Plus, I try to learn from my experience. I've played as well as run games for people who are also DMs.
Okay.
So getting their perspective on things,
Right.
it also helps, and the fact that some of those guys are still willing to, play in my party, that's a good sign, right?
Right,
If
right.
they know how to run the game and I know that they can run a good game, but they're willing to sit in and stay in my game, that's usually a good sign. I've also trained several other people how to run games that they've gone and run them other places.
Right.
Some of them like less hands-on with the training. Some of them more hands-on with it. I know one guy went on to become, after I moved away, he went on to become the forever DM, as they use the phrase, of the group that I left behind in Illinois. He kept DMing them, and he was the guy that learned to DM from me. So that's a good sign also.
Right.
I also bring a lot of different things to the table for DMing.
Right.
Because I've found what works and what doesn't. I've played with groups that only do theater of the mind.
Right.
And then I've played with groups that only do tile mats and interactive. I do kind of a combination of the two because I think it's more fun when you have some props.
And you brought some stuff.
I did bring some stuff. Yeah. So these are a bunch of minis.
Okay.
You can look at. These are all painted ones. These guys in the white are actually from last year's Holiday D&D.
Oh.
They were some snowmen. That's what they're called. But they're like ice zombies.
Like scary
Yeah.
snowmen.
So
They're not cute.
Yeah, those are some ones I painted up last year.
Right.
Because like I said, I like to have the physical things. I've played with some guys who
cool.
they can't visualize it unless they see something.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so I like to use lots of stuff. I like to use all sorts of multimedia stuff. Here's a map of the world for the custom homebrew campaign I'm running right now.
Oh, okay. That's helpful. I love maps.
And so then people can see where things are in relation to each other.
Right. Right.
And, just making it fun and tactile and interactive.
And for people who, like me, who having to keep track of things in my head,
I want to see that, Harrison.
Yeah, I do.
doesn't really work
great.
well for me. Because I would but if I have a physical map, I can say, we're here and we need to get here. So how do we do that?
And some of that is the combination. Yeah. Some of it is the combination of having that tactile feel of things. And some of it is with magic items, I hand out physical cards. So they have a physical thing reminding them that they got some sort of magical
that's
item.
nice. Yeah. Keep in mind.
Especially when I create them myself, I draw a little picture on it so they can visualize kind of what it looks like.
Right.
And then I write what it does once they figure out what it does. Because sometimes you don't know what an item does, but when you first get it, you watch out for those cursed items.
Right.
But then I write what it does on the back so that they can kind of see what it does. And they also have a physical reminder now. Oh, yes, I have this that does this.
Right. Right.
And some of the guys really appreciate that. Some of them is they use the D&D app, the D&D Beyond app, to do all their stuff. They even want to roll in that, which I love the feeling of the dice. I love the sound of it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So when you play, I know you have a space in your house.
Yes, I have a devoted.
And you set up the game, which includes. Do you use the mats and all of that?
Yeah, so I use tile mats. Actually, my games are multimedia, so I use
a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So I have tile mats. I have music set up. I also have a big projector. For a while, I was projecting maps. I don't like those as much. Personally, you can get super detailed maps projecting. But I actually use my projector for background stuff. So if it's a cold, icy game, I turn off most of the lights. I have a app on my phone. I will. I'll turn the heat off. I'll turn the lights all off except for the light right above the table.
Right.
And then on my screen, I've got the snow falling and the cold wind blowing. You can hear it, stuff like that. And so just fun things like
really
that. You can bring it.
That's very cool.
I like to do that kind of stuff. It also brings it up a tier for the guys and makes them be able to get into the moment.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, I like to do that kind of fun
Now, you
stuff.
mentioned magical items. They're
Yes.
important to keep track of. And I don't want to forget, listeners, Thomas brought some potions.
Yes, I did. This one is an elixir.
Cold.
It says right there on the front, it's an elixir.
Alive!
Yeah.
Okay.
Ancient mushroom elixir.
All right, our beverage of the day, GT's Alive Mushroom Elixir. You brought a couple of things here.
I did bring a second one in case this was just too much for everybody and we needed a palate cleanser. I brought a nicer drink that I drink regularly as well.
And, it looks like a beer can.
I think this is a suitably
this is
kind of elven beverage.
Oh, look at that! It's like it's even like mist coming off the top as I open it there.
Whoa!
Okay, I have a question though about this.
Yeah, it smells just like a cola.
It does. It is.
It's called a cola. It smells like a cola,
and it only has 5 grams of sugar, which we know that's not normal for what we
does
bring
have a
on
little
here.
bit of it does have a little bit of stevia in it though too.
Okay, so it's GT's Alive Ancient Mushroom Elixir. I'm curious to know if it's an ancient mushroom or it's an ancient elixir.
I don't think cola is that ancient though, and it's supposed to be a cola.
It's supposed to awaken your mind and body, clean energy, mental clarity, and balanced mood. Thrive with Alive. What's in it? I don't want to know. Raw apple cider vinegar.
Oh, I love that.
Reishi mushroom.
Okay.
Chaga mushroom.
I brought a mushroom drink, and I'm not a fan of mushrooms.
Turkey tail mushroom.
This could get interesting.
And caffeine.
All right, the caffeine. There's the Alive right there.
All right. Cindy, pour us also.
It's a pale brown. It's kind of a lagery, like cloudy lagery color.
I think I'll take a little bit.
You know, I was going to say it looked like a cola. Pouring in it looked like a cola. No, it looks
like
a bit
root beer.
cloudy.
Thank you.
It's a little bit cloudy.
Okay, ready?
All right.
It does smell like cola, though.
It
does.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay. I think that gives
Cindy, are you okay?
Oh, that's horrible.
That is an interesting. You know, it's not as bad as I was thinking.
I kind of like it.
I was going to say it's got a weird, funky aftertaste. It's the follow-up taste that's funky.
Yeah.
The initial taste just tastes like cola, and it smells so much like cola, but the follow-up is. Cindy's having trouble here with this drink.
It almost came back on the mic.
It's not one I would choose to drink.
It definitely, it tastes like cola, but in a way that like you took a cola and you put a bunch of stuff into the cola.
like lemon juice or something soury almost.
Vinegar. It's vinegar.
You know, the vinegar, yes, somebody took cola and just poured apple cider vinegar into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's why it tastes funky.
It doesn't taste funky, Thomas. It tastes terrible.
Oh, yeah. There's the aftertaste is...
The more you drink it, the worse it gets.
When I was a little kid, my family had a station wagon, you know, with the brown fake wood paneling on the outside. All that.
Those great ones.
There was a spot in the wheel wells that used to like leak and get waterlogged, and it had some fuzzy carpet. It smells a lot like the water that would build up and like that aftertaste.
That's a good review of this stuff right there.
Wow.
Wheel well water is what we're drinking.
It's nostalgia.
It probably tastes like it too.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is for people. Yeah. Who,
I don't know why I keep drinking it.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing the same thing. Like, I kind of can't stop.
Move it away.
This is for people who think that to be healthy, you have to drink horrible things.
Yes, it is. It does. It definitely tastes like one of those kind of drinks. It's got to taste bad to be healthy.
So on the side, their little tagline is "Taste that invigorates."
Oh my goodness. Wakes you up.
It does something.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, my tongue still tastes like...
I wanted to bring something weird for you guys.
Well, you managed. Yeah. I think that's as bad as I've ever had. I think
it really hangs in there.
It's still there.
It really does.
Well, that's why I brought another one. If we want
to. Do we want to pour that on right on top of our?
I don't know about that because none of us finished our cup. So
I finished mine.
I got water.
Okay, yeah, I got some water too.
The alternate here, Thomas, tell us about your alternate beverage.
It's Liquid Death. It's the Cherry Obituary.
Ooh.
Liquid Death. I don't know if you know anything about Liquid Death, but their marketing is murder your thirst. Yeah, they're really for guys who like sparkling water. That's what they're for.
But they're too masculine to drink it out of a little bottle.
So they look like beers. Is what they look like.
I'm going to pour a little Cherry Obituary on top of this.
You can try that.
Right on top of it.
Right on top. Go for it.
Mixed drink.
Oh.
How did that turn out?
It's quite nice.
Oh, really?
Oh, good.
It's really a step down. It's just... Yeah, especially following up after that living mushroom cola.
Yeah.
It's a very mild, faintly sweet sparkling water.
Yeah, it is. And that's because they don't actually they only add agave nectar, and that's the only sweetener they use. So it is sugar, but it's a very small amount of it. And that's why I like them. I started drinking them when I went off sugar. As the only sugar I would have was just the sugar from and in this whole can, that's 4 grams of sugar. So it's not very much, but it's actual sugar. It's not an artificial sweetener. I'm not a fan of artificial sweeteners. So
stevia is a little sharp.
Yeah,
it's a little bit. It's not good in like a nice warm round kind of thing like a cola. Yeah, stevia doesn't mesh. Yeah. It's more like a gum sweetener. Yeah, but something like this, cherry, the agave really works.
Yeah, and it tastes good. It doesn't taste overpoweringly sweet. I was never a big fan of overpoweringly sweet. This is a regular drink that I have at my house right here. This is a newer flavor, so I don't normally have this flavor, but yeah.
Well, I would say that if you wanted to make your Quest campaign a little more realistic, you could poison somebody with a mushroom elixir. Just pour them a little shot glass and say, "Okay, you're dead." Yeah. Or you're laid up for like the next week, trying not to throw it back out onto the microphone. That's memorable. So I wanted to just reiterate about D&D? Holland D&D. I can't even say it. Yeah. About the D&D game that's going to be coming up.
The holiday themed D&D.
Yes. On December 13th and December 14th from 4 to 10 p.m. Remember, you need to sign up ahead of time. We will make a waiting list, but if you want to be one of those lucky 6 players.
12 total.
Just 2 sessions, then sign up early.
Especially if you want to sign up with somebody else, because I know some people are like, I want to play with this person. Right. These games do fill up. Right. I've done Holiday D&D has become an annual tradition with a lot of the guys I game with, and they fill up.
Yeah. So December 13th, December 14th, that's a Friday night and a Saturday night, high school age and up. You got to sign up to do it. But remember, if you miss this event, we are going to be starting a monthly D&D campaign, and Thomas has very nicely volunteered to run that for us. We don't have a day or a time yet, but we will get that out.
And that will partially be to the interest, too.
Right.
How many people are interested in such a thing?
Right. So. And we're hoping to get hopefully, we have a couple other DMs that we can call on to come in and maybe do 2 sessions if we fill up one. So that's really our goal, is to bring this game to the library, and we have a great space for it, and you guys' downstairs spaces are going to be great for it. So any questions that you have, Harrison?
None that can't be answered by sitting down and playing.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you're like, yes, we definitely need to. If you're like me and you've always been interested but have not been sure when and how and where to start. Yeah.
I've introduced a lot of completely new players to D&D. Yeah.
Well, it makes me think that someday before I die, I'm going to have to play a game.
You should. But the last time you played a game with minis with me, I overwhelmed you. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't.
There's the zombie one where you and...
we died. The zombies killed us. Yeah. That was fun, though. I do enjoy it. It's just, to me, it feels funky to me. But I would do a murder one. I would do a murder mystery. Absolutely, I would do that. I would I would bring friends.
I bet you would actually like Call of Cthulhu, which is another tabletop RPG.
Oh, probably, yeah. I like it's
usually set in like the 30s and stuff like that. Game.
I'm not that much fun to play with when you're a beginner and you're playing with all these guys that know what they're doing, and you feel really
Well, that's also why I think that Holiday D&D is a great, like Harrison was saying, for new players, because I do make it completely new player friendly every time.
Yeah.
For some guys, it's the only game they play all year round. Last year I had at least 2 guys who it was their first game and the only game that they played since, but they're planning to come again this year because they had so much fun last time.
Good. All right. Well, thank you for coming, Thomas, and filling us in on all the fun stuff, bringing your little figures and your dice, which sound cool. And I just can't thank you for bringing that mushroom stuff.
Hey, you didn't try the one that was actually good.
No, I didn't. So I'll have to try one of those next time I come over to the house. Anyway, so Harrison, you want to take us out of here?
I can take us out. Thank you so much. We've got a game to play.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you all next week.
Bye.
See ya. The Free Bin is a production of the Toledo Public Library, which is part of the Lincoln County Library District in beautiful Lincoln County, Oregon. Writing by Harrison Baker, Cindy Bilek, and Denise Marsh. Original music and editing by Harrison Baker. That's me. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect those of any organizations they represent. Good night.